Well, I started to rebuild this 8889 Ultima. There's my more modern RC10 that I want to get out and race a little bit again. It's from 2000 or so, or 2020, I mean, or so. But this Ultima rebuild that I'm in the midst of got me to thinking about all the motors and things, brushed motors in particular. I have nothing against the brushless motors. They're great motors. They're modern. You don't have to worry about brushes. However, I have an affinity for brushed motors. I just like them. I can't explain it. I just like them. But it got me thinking about the old days, motors from the old days. These right here, 480 Le Mans, is from back in 88, 89 or so. This 240S Le Mans from back in the day. This one was from back then also. It has no engravings, no labels, no nothing. It's what back then we called can motors. And they were, limited by like $10, $20. I forget exactly. This is another can motor from back then. 1988, 89 or so. I don't recall exactly how old that was. I know this Ultima Pro was from 88 or 89. Anyway, RevTech, I remember the name from back in the day. Anyway, the two can motors that I have here, I don't know that there's much difference between them. I don't know how I could tell. I'd love to have one of them little things I could stick them on a bench and give them a run. These are a little bit more modern motors from Holmes Hobby that I use my crawlers. This is a 550. This is a shorty. Ugh, man, the magnets on this sucker are heavy duty. There we go. The Holmes Hobbies Polar 500. Sweet little motors. Sweet little motors. I don't know how they would work in something like the old cars. Holmes Hobbies Torque Master Expert 540 35 turn. I believe this one is a 13 turn. This one's a 12 turn. This one's 35 turn. People can explain it better than I can, I'm sure, but 35 is a little bit less power, less torque. I don't know about RPMs being a factor. I don't know. 12 turn, I don't know. They don't get. I've got an 11 turn. I don't know if they get lower than 11 turns. I don't know. There's things I don't know. Lots of things I don't know. And that being I believe it's a 13 turn. Anyway, it started me thinking about all kinds of stuff about the old motors back in the day. We used to solder these little things on. That, I'm guessing, is a condenser. These things, I don't know what they are. Are they diodes? Are they resistors. I don't believe they're resistors. I don't know their functions, but you can see that we'd solder them on. The can, which I call a condenser, again, I could be wrong, goes between plus and minus, and each one of these other ones goes from minus to ground and plus to ground. Like in this case here, ground being whatever. In this case, ground is the can itself. But this one, I have two of the blue ones, minus ground, plus to ground, and then this brown one that goes across from plus to minus. Feel free to help me understand this. I don't. I don't know if I understood it back then. I probably just did what I was told to do, or read to do, or saw in some write-up. There was no internet back then. Hobby shops and magazines is where I figured most of my stuff out, I guess. We didn't have internet, and I didn't really hang out in the hobby shops that much myself. Back in the 80s, when I was racing this car back in the late 80s, there were several tracks in Colorado. Mile High Off-Road down there in, I don't know what they call it. It's probably Aurora. They're still open. They're the only one I know of that is still open that I raced on back in the late 80s. It just changed ownership a year ago. Prior to that, the people running it were, I don't know the real story, the full story, but I think they were the kids that back in the late 80s I was running those tracks, and that specific track, and these two young fellers in there, brothers, sons of the owner, I believe, were kicking my frickin' butt. I didn't mind getting beat by guys my own age or closer, but these little kids, they were kids. They were young teens, I suppose, if even teens. But they were good. I'm sure Dad set their cars up properly, but they drove them well. They were impressive. I think one of them I met when I went down to MHOR, more off-road down there. I think he was running the shop. I think he's the one that just sold it. I don't know if the brothers were running it together or what. I really don't know that deep history. But it's just interesting that they were the young kids. They were beating my butt, took over Dad's shop, and now, just like I say, a year ago, just a few days over a year ago, they sold the thing. I spoke with the new owner. I haven't been down there yet, but I'm sure it's doing the same thing. They have quite a dedicated group of people indoor racing on a clay track. It's a sweet little track. I want to get back on it. I want to get this car, that Ultima Pro, back on that track. That should happen within a month or so. Anyway, the reason I really got to wanting to make a video was because I don't know, I started getting curious about the old days, curious about all these electrical things. The exact reasoning, I'm guessing, like I say, radio interference. They still put them on some things today. They still do. These are motors that I really don't use. But I was going to say, I have on here, I have a couple of those things. Plus to ground, minus to ground. And that's a little bit more modern of a motor. I think I got this, I don't know, 2020 or so. I promptly burned it up. I think the brushes went bad, and that's one that you can't do brushes on. There we go. One of the brushless motors. It's a hot little bugger for 2S. stock axial things, and I don't know what that black one is. Anyway, I just showed that to say they still do some of those on some modern motors. I've got brushed in most of those. That Samurai is my pure crawler, TGH, essentially a TGH Sherpa. Optic H10 from Vanquish I just built has a brushed in it. That laser nut has a brushless in it. This bomber, which is highly modified, has a brushless in it. 124s. Back in the day, even further back than 1989, I used to do slot cars, and I've been doing them off and on since. I've built a few tracks. I still have a lot of track and stuff. But these are really where I got my first taste of brushed motors. These little pancake motors, they call them. These are not pancake motors. These are a little bit more modern motors. Yeah, this is some a little bit more recent modern stuff. More of the cars. These are the pancake things I'm talking about. This is that upper plate. And there's a little motor with a little armature, commutator. Clearly this one could stand to be cleaned up a little bit, but that's what this box is just stuff that I probably can get running again someday. Most of this is what they refer to as T-jets, which is like late 60s, early 70s. I'm not the best at telling you exactly the time frame of them. This specific one here is the ones I did when I was a youngster, with the little clips on the side. It's almost the same as the T-jet, except it's got these little clips on the side, and you can just snap the body on, rather than the T-jets where you had to run a little screw up. And you run a little screw up through that little hole there to attach it to the body, one in back, one in front. But the T-jets to me are the coolest. I love the T-jets. I like these just because, yeah, that's what I did as a youngster back in the mid-70s, early 70s, mid-70s. I graduated high school in 77, so I'm sure it was a few years before that when I stopped racing these little guys or playing with them on a track. Me and a buddy, I remember our times together. They were great. We loved the heck out of our little cars. Little axles you can see on this one. The axles had threads and the wheels screwed on and fancy stuff. A standard one, they were just push on. You just push the wheels onto the axles. I digress. I didn't mean to go this far down into these things. These were just ones I bought, modern bodies, and they came with these, and I haven't really messed with them much. But it's a TJ replica, but a modern build. TJ? T-jet. They are T-jets, but modern T-jets. These are Oh, these are original T-Jets. Straight from Hong Kong. Little springs, brushes, wheels. Oh, here's some of the brushes. Like I say, I thought of these as I was talking about the electric motors, and this is where I learned about electric motors. My career, I was operating a lot of electric motors, pumps mostly, but yeah. Anyway, the only reason I went down there was just nostalgic, thinking about how I ever even got started in any of this stuff. Back in the day, it was slot cars. Back in the day, it was slot cars. Got me to thinking about my old Ultima, I'm sorry. Optima was the four-wheel drive version. The Ultima that I started rebuilding. I should be done with it within a few weeks. I'm just kind of waiting on parts. That's why I'm sitting around twiddling my thumbs, thinking about silly stuff like motors. Like motors. Like I say, I just love them. I love the brushed motors. Still use them. Still like them. Some of the stuff I don't know about anymore. I've forgotten things. These we used to put in between the motor and the motor plate. Oops, I would put it on this way. And it just provided a little gap for air cooling. So one of the aftermarkets that made us fancier and better is hopefully keep the motor cooler longer. Theory seems correct. You can see all those air holes that kind of get covered up when you screw it onto that motor plate. Again, those little electrical things that, heck, I'm hoping somebody can answer me. I'll ask questions on the forums. I'll post this video, but they're purely for radio interference issues. Back in the day, we used AM radios. That's what those chips are for. Used to have to change them out to different channels. This one happens to be what? Channel 80. I have a set in the controller and on the receiver, but AM stuff back in the day, not like the modern stuff with binding. Again, is that what those are for? I know in the modern days they've got those cans on there. Some people put big ones on. These are kind of small compared to what I've seen. I'm sorry, capacitors. Those are capacitors. And I'm guessing that guy in the middle there is a capacitor. These guys, can't tell you. Diodes. I'd like to learn more. Not that these are going anywhere. Not like there are people doing them anymore. Springs. We used to mess around with springs. The brush springs. You can see here. This would be a heavy spring. This would be a light spring. Just because when you clip this on, this is the part that holds the brush down into the can. This is the part that attaches to it. So when you put it in and you wind this thing around over here and clip it in on the motor. Let me get a for instance. You see that little part there? That's the part that clips in. That's the spring that clips in. This is the part that goes down and holds the brush against the commutator. So as you can see, when I take that off, that spring once again, I'll call that a heavy spring. But when you put it on, you wrap that thing around. The world's best videographer, I am not. And doing it one-handed is difficult. So, back to the springs. Like I say, that one's strong because it's got to wrap a long ways around to put more tension on the brush. This one's light. It only has to wrap around so far. They all are going to wrap around to about over here somewhere on the can. This one's got to go all the way around, more than 180 degrees. This one's got to go around, let's call it 90. Call this one 180. Call this one 90. This one being medium tension. This one kind of in between. I think it's a stiff one, but it's just old. Maybe a little bit of the tension has gone out of it. So we used to play with that. They used to say, oh, on a rough, really rough, and we're not talking crawlers right now, because that's not what all this technology was about. In my opinion, anyway, back in that day, it was about racing on a track. These guys you'd use on a really bumpy track. If you're really bumping, a really bumpy, rocky, loose track, bumping all over the place, you'd want a heavier spring to hold it down. If you put a light spring on it, the hope is that you're a fairly smooth track and you're not getting the springs hammered by the bumpiness, and lighter tension on this applying a lighter tension on the brushes, which makes them not contact the commutator quite so heavily, allows it to spin easier, faster. Less resistance. Less turning resistance. So that was the difference in my understanding for back in the day. Brushes are one of the things you messed with. Now brushes, I should say. Right here is just like a standard brush. A standard brush. These ones beside it, these ones have that little step down. I messed with a lot of those. That little step down. On the brush. I'm losing my words. This is just a worn set, but the interesting part is it's got 2 wires. They sold some with 2 wires. Can't tell you if that made a difference, just a sales gimmick. But I imagine it allowed you to dump more power to it. I don't know. They sold a lot of the 2 ones. More of the step downs, more of the stepped brushes. Curiosity between these are that this one this is their orientation. The commutator is spinning this way, commutator. So this one, you can see the curved part. That's the part contacting the commutator. This one went the other way. This one is angled 90 degrees from that one. So that's curious, the difference between that and that. I think in a canned motor that these would potentially adjust the timing slightly. Maybe just a degree or two. Because a canned motor is, you can't do timing. Like on these guys, you definitely can adjust the timing on the motor. These cans, you cannot. But if you put in that brush, that would change the timing slightly. I don't know if that's a real reason they did them like that or not. It has to be, in my estimation, one of the explanations for what the heck they were doing. These guys didn't do anything with the timing, kept the timing stock, but less surface area on the commutator. Less surface area on the commutator, which allowed it again to have less friction, to move more freely. That guy possibly changing the timing and less surface area. Just standards, but these standards had those dual wire things going on. I see some still today. You can still buy them today. Old stock, I guess, or something. Most of them that I had were just simple steps. Orientate these the same as those other ones over there. These all in essentially the same orientation of the can, of the rotor spinning in this direction. So this one could potentially change the timing. This one is just less surface area. Standard. Less surface area. Standard. I think these guys are brand new, or have never been used. These guys are modern brushes. Not that there's really any difference. These are sold by Holmes Hobby. Soft copper stand-up brushes. These are all similar, in my opinion. We had some brushes that were called hard brushes. Oh, well, here's the Trinity ones right here. These are from back in the day. Still in the package. These Trinity brushes. You can see they have the dual wires. And they are not cut. But in the day, new hard brushes. Kayasho Yokomo brush, new hard material. Longer life. So with a hard brush, you get longer life. Who really cares about longer life when you're racing? Then whatever. This is the modern Holmes Hobby brush. I'm guessing those little grooves just assist in breaking them in a little quicker, better. You buy them, sometimes they have that, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the brushes had this little slot on the back side. That's where the brush spring sits down into. Sometimes they didn't have that little slot. Whatever. Not sure what this one was from. Just more stuff in my box of things. I'm pretty sure these are from back in the day. I had the baggies labeled light and heavy. Light tension and heavy tension. So today I was poking around on the internet Just looking at things, curiosity, you know, curiosity. I don't really have a better way of showing, but just do it like this. These are all brushes you can still buy today, but they call them vintage. I don't know how old of a brush vintage is. The label, well, there's the label. Custom cut soft brush pair. I don't. What I'm trying to point out, though, is all the different cut types that I had never seen before. I find it very interesting. Look at that one. Just got a cut up the middle. This one is like an H pattern cut. That one has like a T crossed through it. This one's like a slot in the middle. I think that's kind of the same thing, except it's got the 2-wire deal again. Like I was showing you some of those old brushes of mine. This has got 2 wires. Does that really help? Heck, I don't know. This guy seems like it's 2 wires or just a wide wire. No, it looks like 2. If you kind of look right here, there's a bit of a gap. So I guess that's a 2-wire deal. That looks like a standard with 2 wires. This one's just a simple cut brush like those I had on my bench there. This is another simple cut. And this is just a plain old slot. This is 2 wires with a hole in it. Just drill a hole in it, apparently. This is a cut with a hole in it. And this one's another cut with a hole in it. 2 wires again. Both of these are 2 wires. And there's there's just a simple hole drilled in it with 1 wire. A hole with 2 wires, a hole with 1 wire. I found those brushes to be quite interesting. Quite interesting. This is the only one I found on the net. I found it just very interesting that they had all those different cut types that I had never seen before. I had never seen all them different little cut types. Very cool. Very different. Any of them better than the other? Any of them really make any difference? Yeah, back in the day, I imagine at the top end they made some difference. Anyway, if anybody watches my video, I don't get a whole lot of views when I post videos, but I'd sure love to hear any experts' opinions on these things. Particularly what those things are and what the different brush cuts might have meant or done. I'd love to hear the detailed, more scientific explanation of those things. I hope to be running one or all these motors again. I'd love to see the difference between the 240 and the 480. What difference is there? I don't know. How many turns are they? I don't know. They don't talk about turns back in the day. Or I didn't know about it back then. Today it's all about the turns of the motor. How many turns? 9, 10, 11, 12, 21. The racing cars, that's in that one there is a 17.5 turn. There's a 19.5 turn. My poor brain. I know I'm going to switch it to a 21.5 just because 21.5 is a little slower. I need slower in this day and age of mine. Oh, some of the things we did back then also. This commutator brush. And stick it down in the hole there where the brush goes and spin the commutator by hand, spin the rotor by hand, and clean up the commutator. People don't do that anymore, I guess. This was com drops. RevTech com drops, they called them. You drip them down in there, a couple drips on the rotor, put the brushes in, spin it up, and away you go. I don't know if they lubricated, cleaned, what? I don't know. Love to hear from somebody that knows all these things that I'm just plain old curious about. Hopefully I get that guy done here before too long, waiting on parts to come in the mail. Some of the old battery packs that we had back in the day. I don't recall the difference between the red ones and the yellow ones right now. This is a brand new matched set of batteries I got back in the day for $49. That's expensive back in them days. $49 for a battery pack. Holy cannoli. Never put them together. Kind of a standard pack, but I don't know that I ever ran these suckers. I don't know. These guys, these little things you'd plug in when you got done racing, you'd plug your batteries into these, and that little light would come on, and it would drain the battery down because that's where we like to store them, was in a drained state. This is exactly how I found my box of stuff. It was out in the shed, and I found all my stuff out there one day and started going through it. And then decided later on, that was back in 2019 when I got all this stuff in that car out of the shed, and then it sat on my shelf, and I was messing around with crawlers and things mostly all that stuff. I was messing around with those things, and yeah, I got a few bombers. I like the bombers. I've had a lot of fun, especially in my yard. The bombers are kind of ideal for my yard. It's not really bashing, but I suppose it's more like bashing. I have some trails out back on the hillside there. My yard has, I got a fair amount of room to go out and climb up those hills and get on the deer trails and do the crawlers on them. These little balloons, we used to put them on the shocks. I don't know, red, blue, whatever. I guess whatever you felt like, it didn't matter. You put them on the shocks, right over the shocks, and it'd keep the dirt off the shafts and things. I don't see that being done these days. It's just one of the day things from back in the day. Back in the day. One of my big deals was trying to learn how to solder properly. I really didn't learn how to solder properly back then. I'm a much better solderer nowadays. But it got it done. I got it done. I don't even have an adjustable soldering iron. Not the one on the right there, but you can barely see the one in the back. Was the iron I used back then. You just plug it in and use whatever temperature it gives you. Then I got that one, and then I got that one, and now mostly I use this little TS100 that is battery powered, or you can plug it in, but that's a really nice little soldering iron that I enjoy. But anyway, I knew very little about soldering back then. I got it done, but I didn't know. Nowadays, oh man, some of those guys in the net with their tutorials and showing you what to do and what not to do with soldering is just fantastic. I've learned a lot just the last few years, but soldering. I'm rambling on. I think I'll wrap this up. If you watched till now, thanks. If you got any answers, any thoughts, any suggestions on what I've done, please comment. I think I'll try and get this thing published. Looking forward to getting this guy back on the road. Not too far away. Not too far away. So far I've just mostly cleaned things up and started inspecting stuff. I've got, oh gosh, I've got all the old electronics for it. I need to clean those up and plug them in and see if I let all the smoke out. Really looking forward to getting this Ultima Pro kit number 3117. Really looking forward to getting this on the road. Most of the things I see on the Ultima Pro show them with a metal bottom plate there. This is one of them, I don't know what you call it, composite or whatever. Most of the things I read say, oh, the 317117 has that metal bottom. Well, not this one. These arms I added back in the day. I must have broke my other ones. But they're Andes A arms, a little bit wider. That was kind of the key to trying to get a little bit of turning performance out of these things. A little bit wider A arms. But stronger, better, aftermarket. Got to improve it. What I found when I took this thing apart was the shock tower was busted, so I put a new shock tower on it. I had bought one back in the day when I stopped racing. I had never gotten around to putting it on. The bulkhead was busted. The screws wouldn't hold it in properly, so I put a new bulkhead on. The springs, or the pins, these pins, one of them was bent like a bugger. Clearly, somebody had abused this thing back in the day. Anyway, I put new pins on it. Things are seeming smooth. Clean up and redo all the linkages, new ball ends. Get everything smooth and non-bindy. Like right now, everything is pretty bindy. Everything's pretty bindy. These guys are just terrible. They're terrible. They hard to move them things. I got some new ones on the way. Can't wait for them to get in and rebuild all my turnbuckles. Shocks I've got to get going on. Got some stuff for the shocks to rebuild them. These guys are interesting. Back in the day, one of the aftermarket things for shocks was these progressive rate inserts. Goes in the shock, and then this thing stays up top, and this piston moves up and down, of course, as the shock cycles. But the interesting part is this tapered pin that goes through the top of that hole is essentially varying the orifice size so that the more compressed it gets, the smaller the orifice gets, and the more resistance it is to movement. So as it plunges up, it goes slower, the resistance goes slower. As it goes down, it opens up and moves more freely. Did it really make any difference? I was not at a level to tell. A lot of things I just put on because, oh, they're new, they're modern. This is going to help. This will help. This will help. Oofta. There's my RC10, buddy. Oh, where's my... There's the controller for that Ultima, that AM controller. Bunch of the old tires from the day. There's the body for my Ultima. This is the manual for the Ultima. Okay, I think I said it before. I'm about ready to wrap this guy up. This video, that is. I hope to hear back from folks. I'd love to learn more about. This video is about the motors more than anything else. One of the forums I'm on, I'm doing a build video on the Ultima. I don't know if I haven't done any video on that yet. I might attempt that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Later.